Greetings, everyone. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Ken.
Merry Christmas to you, Dale, and to our established and long-awaited viewers. Hopefully it's going to be a nice Merry Christmas, yes.
I certainly hope so.
Yes.
Well, folks, this is a special recording. This is a pre-recorded program brought to you tonight. And so we're recording this a few days early from Christmas. But we thought this would be better to bring to you instead of a best of from the past. So we're trying a little something different tonight. So we will be included in our recording right here is going to be then the In Focus segment that we normally do. All right, let's get Ken. Let's get into the In Focus segment, and let me bring on our guests that are going to participate in that tonight. So Mr. Ken Whaley out of Idaho. Hello, Ken.
How are you, Dale? Afternoon,
good.
KK.
Good to see you, KW.
Yeah. I have to speak KK or KW. I mean, it really gets confusing sometimes. But speaking of confusing, here's Mr. Charlie Myers.
Hi, Merry
Charlie.
Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Charlie's a valued player, a member of our comms team here in Indiana, doing a fantastic job. And one of our regulars, Mr. Gary Harbaugh. Hello, Gary.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
There you go.
All right. Well,
and let me be the first.
What's that, Gary?
I was going to say, let me be the first to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving 2026.
You're getting in early on that, aren't you, Gary?
Wow.
Boy, I'll say.
So does that mean you're sending out turkeys early, too?
Of course.
Of course. Get them while they're cheap. Hey, Gary, get them while they're cheap. The prices come down quite a bit.
Yeah, that's right. I'm fattening one in my backyard right now.
All right. Well, this is a kind of a special In Focus segment tonight, since we're pre-recording. But let's first of all, group, let's talk about what's got our attention in the news. This is what our In Focus segment normally deals with. What's got our focus in the news. And then we'll come back and let's talk about Christmas. Let's talk about what is special to each of us about Christmas, since this is the season. So who wants to, KW, how about you leading off here with what's got your focus in the news?
Well, it's actually been a little bit past, but I've been watching the results and kind of backlash in both directions after the Rob Reiner killing, he and his wife, apparently by his son, allegedly. They do have him arrested at this point. But one of the things that came up to me that really struck me was not so much, I mean, it's a shame. I've watched him and his matter of fact, I was watching little clips the other night from All in the Family back in his Meathead days. I mean, back when he was first being on air, and so many things he's done since, and such a skilled filmmaker, writer. I have to honestly admit, I don't agree with his politics, haven't for many, many years, but
right.
You have to admire the man's skill sets and understanding of that art form. And what that brought to me after really kind of stewing on that a bit was the difference between what happened after Charlie Kirk was assassinated and after Rob Reiner and his wife were killed by their own child. Two different things, obviously, but the resulting feedback or pushback from the public at large, to me, was massively different. And I don't want to get too maudlin about the whole thing, but the whole concept of, people having the ability to laugh and to say Yahoo for what happened to Charlie. Whereas I think there's been much less of that from shall we call it, the more conservative side of things with regards to Mr. Reiner and his wife's passing. It breaks my heart that our country has come to that point. We'll put it that way, to where there could be that much hatred for somebody that's a good spokesperson on one side, and not have that same response to somebody from the other side. But so I just wanted to kind of touch on that. That has bothered me greatly. I think as a country, if we're that separated in how we look at well-known individuals dying, I'll keep it generic that way. It says a lot about the breakup, so to speak, within the country and what's going on here.
KW, now explain this a little bit more. I have to be honest with you. I have not, with regard to Rob Reiner, I have not looked at various sources as to how they're covering that. I mean, the conservative resource that I look at all the time, I thought was very respectful. I don't recall anything negative being said about him other than he was obviously very much against Trump and very much against Republicans. But I don't. Are you saying that did the conservative say a lot of negative things about him, or what are you saying?
Apparently I wasn't clear, because just the opposite is the point I was trying to make. So many people came out in such a negative way, very publicly and very openly, to basically cheer on the fact that Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Right.
And I feel that from the more conservative side of things, social media, news, all across the board, have been very much more respectful and acknowledging of Reiner's skills
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I, that was my point, was to show that there was such a difference in the response.
Okay.
Not that the conservatives were negative towards Reiner, but so much as the non-conservatives, shall we say, were not towards Charlie. And it just, to me, showed the real fracture in this country.
Yeah.
In the way that was responded to. The two different circumstances were
Yeah,
responded.
I see what you're saying. I see.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Very interesting. You know, when you said mentioned about Rob Reiner and the Meathead days, you know, there are I'm sure many of our viewers were not even alive when he was Meathead. When was All in the Family? Was that in the 70s?
60s, I think.
Yeah, either late 60s, early 70s. They only did 5-6 seasons, but that was a long-running show in those days.
Were you alive
Wouldn't take
then,
but a
Charlie?
second.
Charlie, you weren't even alive then, were you?
Heck no.
Yeah.
The a lot of the Archie Bunker clips though take off on, you know, different social media platforms because
Right.
you know, usually with the tagline of they don't make shows like they used to. You know, you could never get away with this today. You can get away with it because Archie Bunker evolved into Eric Cartman. So I don't know how much you guys have watched South Park, but you know that is the inspiration for Eric Cartman, who is a filthy mouthed 8-year-old. I think they're only 8 or 9 years old. The inspiration for him was Archie Bunker, so it just became something else. But as far as sitcoms go, Archie Bunker is alive and well on Instagram and TikTok and all
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only place he'd be alive and well. He'd probably be labeled a racist and taken down.
100%. Well, I mean, you're describing Eric Cartman to a T, you know, so he's still out there. The whole do you want to hear the tweet that Donald Trump sent out? Are you interested to hear about Rob Reiner? Because as much as like, you know, we want to, you know, that's the thing, right? Something happens, and because of the democratization of the internet, but imagine a debate where you have, you know, somebody on the left and somebody on the right, and they're on a stage, and all of the ideas and emotions are being filtered into those two voices. And then from there, that's what's being put into a microphone. Now everybody in the crowd has a microphone. So when something happens, everybody gets a voice, everybody gets to speak. And that includes the crazy people. That includes the people with mental health problems, you know. So unfortunately, Rob Reiner dies, and Trump puts out the guy at the top of modern conservatism puts out a tweet that's largely about himself. Do you mind if I read it?
Go ahead. I think I've seen this, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay. He said, a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. Just kind of bizarre. That is a bizarre response to a man allegedly being murdered by his own son. Yeah. So I don't know if his son is I doubt he's a closeted conservative taking out his father on behalf of Donald Trump, but whatever. There you have it.
Yeah.
That brings an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Twist. Quite the twist.
I tell you, I love what our president's doing, but sometimes I wish he would just
stop tweeting.
Yeah,
it's like echoes of 2016 and 17 and 18.
Well, then you compare that. You compare that to the 4, 5, 6 years now that he's been lambasted in the media and on social media. And at this point, I think that again, I think we've come to know Donald Trump as somebody who there's always something behind what he's saying, and there's always, as they call him, the 3D or 4D checker player. He's always got something that's got a future reach to it. So
back in the first term, Ben Shapiro had a segment called "Good Trump, Bad Trump" about this very thing, where he would refer to him as hammer, and to a hammer everything looks like a nail, so he's always punching, and that's where we like him until he punches a baby, and you're like, dude, what do you know? Like, that was obviously a baby. Now it's meanwhile you have the Michelle Obamas of the world saying, when they go low, we go high, which is horse manure. That's such BS. They're by going high, if you mean freaking out emotionally, then maybe she has a point, but that's not what they do. They shoot people in the face and laugh about it. But then, meanwhile, we're all expected, the conservatives are expected to always do the right thing and always be nice. Yeah. And so it's like, how long can that go on? That's what's expected of us, but how long will that actually go on? Who is it that said that when it comes to violence, the left is more willing, but the right is more capable? So, yeah.
And I guess that's kind of where my whole point with starting on that topic was that, to Charlie's point, how long does the conservative side of things stay refrained, stay quiet, not truly speak whatever be Trump-like, maybe I should put it that way.
Yeah.
Because you're right. He doesn't hold back. Everything is a nail that way. And I know even during his first term, I hated that he would get on at 2 a.m. and tweet stuff out that just did nothing but kick people when they were down. And you got to find a happy medium, to me anyway. He's the president. So, I mean, I can only speak up to where he's at versus what I've done. But
how long can you poke the bear?
Sorry?
Yeah, I think one difference is that when Trump does that, conservatives kind of recoil and say, oh, you might have gone too far. When the left says something outrageous, all of their leftist people cheer them on. And so that's kind of the difference. We don't cheer on ugly comments, and the left does. In fact, they amplify them, and
as I've pointed out before, the left is the feminine, the right is the masculine, and the feminine believes that it can hit the masculine as much as it wants. But if the masculine were to ever strike back, a 0.1%, then the feminine freaks out. So that's what you have. You have Trump gets shot, Charlie gets shot. There's all this political violence that seems to be flowing from left to right, and then a little bit goes right to left, even just with words. But for the left, words are violence. So Trump says something dumb about Rob Reiner, and we have to hear about it for the next 20 years. And
in case you're thinking that things are going to turn around and he's going to change the way he opens his mouth and tweets in the next 3 years, that's not going to happen. He's not running again. No. He's going to let it fly at this point.
No, that's true.
One thing that we have not been told is what Rob Reiner and his son were arguing about.
Right.
Maybe his son is or was stating conservative things, and nobody just wants to say that. Who knows?
That would be wild. Would be.
Yeah. Nobody's going to tell us that, apparently.
No, true.
But apparently he's had a history of drug addiction, and so that's the only thing we know is that's probably.
Yeah, I kind of favor the drug addiction thing, the mental.
Yeah, he was a victim,
listen,
victim of drug abuse. That
Gary, let's go on. Let's go to you here. What's got your focus?
So I think one of the most significant bits of news in recent days has been the Trump's statement of foreign policy strategy going forward. And he has said, basically, the Middle East and some of those things are not really in our strategic interest. We're going to focus on the Western Hemisphere. I've heard people speculate that in the next year or two, we're going to basically trade Venezuela for Taiwan. Let the Chinese take Taiwan. We'll take back Venezuela. Not that we really will own it, but it'll be back in our sphere of influence. I don't know, but I think it's a very significant shift that foreign policy-wise, instead of trying to be the policeman of the world, Trump is saying, hey, we should be focusing on the Western Hemisphere. And, more may come. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming, months of his administration.
Did you happen to catch any of the Marco Rubio press conference today?
I did not.
I saw a little bit of it. He's really very sharp when it comes to national policy and putting into perspective what our approach to and Trump's approach to international policy. It was very good. And he had, and of course he's Hispanic, and there were news people there that questioned him in Spanish, and he answered them in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very impressive, quite honestly. Anyway, I just thought maybe I'm sure there'll be highlights of it on the news for some days, but I thought it was very, very impressive.
I think people shy away; they get very uncomfortable with the E word, empire. But America is an empire, and so if Venezuela has a lot of resources, I know they do, and losing Taiwan would be difficult, but. Taiwan, their greatest resource is chips, right? That's why we have an interest in Taiwan.
Right.
So if we can, start manufacturing that elsewhere, then that's the reality of it. Is that we're an empire. There's a couple other superpowers, and so again, nobody ever wants to say the E word, but meanwhile, everybody takes our money. So if you take our money, then maybe you do owe us something in return, and we'll take your oil. We'll take whatever you have because we need it. That's just the reality of it. Nobody ever wants to speak that truth because, God forbid we be honest, that we live in a physical reality where scarcity is the number one driver of everything. So, we'll blow up your drug boats and take your oil, and you could just deal with that because you've all taken our money. So.
It could well be that Trump recognizes that global empires have always come to an end because it's far too expensive to project military strength on a global basis. So maybe he's saying it would be smart for us to give up the global part and start focusing on the Western Hemisphere and, protecting what's close by. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if there was to be some one world government, I would certainly hope that it would be ours, as dictated by the Constitution. But if we can't achieve that just yet, then yeah, we should just be more realistic rather than, because that's always what does it, is the spreading of the empire too thin, and then it inevitably collapses. So that's certainly wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Anything else, Gary?
That's about all I got. I mean, I'll make comments on what other people have to say, I'm sure, but yeah, that I think is what's significant in the news right now. That's not the somebody got murdered headline.
All right, Charlie, how about you?
Well, for me, it's not necessarily a current event. It's an ongoing situation ever since Trump retook the office, which is the infighting within conservative media is fascinating to me. It's like it just brings to mind the eternal problem with chaos, right? Is that there's either chaos without or there's chaos within. So the moment there's a great victory, that's when people start tearing each other apart. And early on in 2025, it was almost right away. It was like the conservative men and the conservative women started to fight over feminism, but that lasted a brief amount of time up until Charlie got shot, and then once he got shot, it's been this fascinating drama of watching Candace Owens. And I don't know if you guys are, I'm guilty of getting my news from YouTube, largely from YouTube. And so you have the Tim Pools, you have
what's the Candace thing Owens. With Candace Owen and Erica Kirk? What was that about?
So please ask me. My point being that I'm plugged into this stuff, and I'm going to assume you guys are not. I'm nobody my age watches cable news, and that has nothing to do with, well, maybe it has something to do with quality, but like, I don't go anywhere that advertisements are shown. The only thing I subscribe to is YouTube, so I don't have commercials. Sometimes I'm watching Fox News with my dad, and I say, how do you watch this? It's like 1,000 ads an hour, and every ad is awful. Anyway, so Candace Owens has been out there for 3-4 months. It's been 3-4 months since Charlie Kirk was shot, and she's been out there every single day, just playing to the conspiracy theory nuts. And so with any, between JFK and 9/11 and now Charlie Kirk, any time something like this happens, there are shenanigans all over the place. There's details coming from the feds that make no sense. There's, for example, there was one doctor who said Charlie Kirk's spine, his bones were so dense that it stopped this 30-06 bullet from passing through him, and therefore he saved lives. It's literally a miracle. He's like the Man of Steel. And so they put the federal government, well, this is just some doctor, but like part of the investigation, put stuff out like that. And that's why that just feeds the conspiracy theorists. Then you have Candace Owens, who just takes it to a whole new level, where she's like, everywhere Erica Kirk goes, there are Egyptian planes following her. And like, there's people in the crowd wearing maroon shirts, and look like everybody's signaling to each other. And he was probably killed with an energy weapon, or, and everything goes back to Israel, basically, for her. I'm pretty sure is like her prime suspect. But recently she sat down with Erica Kirk, because I think Candace said on her show, I'll only stop if she asked me to do it. And so they sat down, but they didn't do it in public. They didn't do it over a live stream. They did it privately. And that can only mean that they were not sitting just together. They were sitting with lawyers, and, it was probably more like, let's agree on, like, when we walk out of here, we're going to agree on something, whatever our narrative, whatever our story is going to be. So then almost immediately, Candace, her next show, she started to kind of pull back. Like, yeah, it definitely was, or it probably was Tyler Robinson. Forget about everything I've said. And so now all of her followers, who have just been electrified with all of this conspiratorial stuff. Now they're turning on her. Now she's part of the conspiracy. Now she's being paid off by nefarious shadow forces and all that. And so she's become the architect of her own doom. It's going to be fascinating to watch what happens from here. But this has just been, like everybody is slowly turning against Candace, seeing her more as an opportunist than some truth seeker for approaching this whole situation like it's a serial drama, like it's a true crime podcast, some fiction versus actually seeking the truth. And she's become the #1 podcast in the world because of this over the last 3 or 4 months. Really? She is the #1. And it's all based on crazy talk. Some truth, certainly some truth, like the text messages that Charlie Kirk he said a couple days before he died, he said explicitly, all these Jewish donors are pulling out because he refused to cancel Tucker Carlson. He kept bringing Tucker Carlson to more and more events, and Tucker's been very outspoken against Israel for the last couple of years. And so finally he said, I think I have to abandon the Israel cause. And so Candace is like, therefore they killed him, with no real evidence outside of he said that.
Has she exceeded Grogan in podcast?
I believe so.
Really?
Yeah. Who knows for how long now, especially. Yeah. But
so, Charlie, I have followed it somewhat, Candace, in the early stages after Charlie's assassination. So I was kind of listening to the early side of her conspiracy theories. Do you think that obviously you've delved in a whole lot deeper? Do you think that was her end goal, was just to get her podcast to a point where she generated, the #1 listing, or do you think there was something deeper to her coming out the way she did? I don't know.
The most fun response to that is that some have the theory that she very much grew up in Turning Point with Charlie. And so the equally ridiculous but fun narrative, that sounds like countering conspiratorial stuff with more conspiratorial stuff and dramatic stuff is that she was secretly in love with Charlie, and yet he chose Erica over her. And so now she wants to destroy TPUSA. And whether or not that's true, that's kind of what she has been doing. She has gone so far as to say that there are 2 or 3 people that work for TPUSA who she believes, she won't name them, but she believes they had something to do with his death.
Yeah.
And to the point where she has said, this organization, if you're a donor, pull your donations. TPUSA has to go. And so that was when Erica said, we're going to sit down and you're going to stop doing what you're doing, because you're undoing everything that Charlie did while at the same time claiming that you're doing this for him. Right. So the idea that she's some, woman scorned is hilarious, but the actual fact of it is that she actually is kind of trying to destroy TPUSA, for better or worse. Like TPUSA, there's a reason why a lot of folks jokingly refer to them as Talking Points USA. They're very much like conservatism 101. They're basically like the equivalent of Fox News, but for the younger generation, where it's Fox News. It is what it is. It's overproduced with, red, white, and blue, everything, and hot blonde women. That's their secret sauce. That's how Fox News works. TPUSA it's not challenging. It's very just like conservatism 101, easily accessible, for the kids to get on board. But that is how they built up, this massive organization that has that essentially got Trump elected. So that's certainly why Charlie had such a big target on his back, was because he built that organization. But Candace has been dismantling it up until now. So
I didn't know that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride and there are people who say I hate infighting, but infighting is inevitable and almost necessary to figure out where that coalition is going to go. And so what this has done is it's shined a light on a future America First party. That's where everybody's moving towards, is getting away from, it's near impossible to get away from Democrat, Republican, thinking, but the tide is overwhelmingly shifting towards America First, and whoever's going to take that on. And it's probably going to be the Republican Party, of course, but it's almost going to necessarily mean the end of the Republican Party as we know it, essentially shifting from this whole neocon mentality to paleocon, essentially, like what conservatism was in the past. So that's kind of what this infighting has shined a light on, essentially.
Wow. All right. Ken, KK.
Yeah.
What's got your attention?
I'm going to keep mine on the short side. It's because it's really just the topic is education, and I just I'm not even I really don't even want to focus on as Gary related to this, just another murder topic that's crossed our airwaves constantly for the last week or so. But
right,
I think what I watched really hit home with me as to really the really sad shape our education system is in. When I watched Brown University, and again, this has nothing to do with the police forcing of it, but really just this woke institution headed up by this woke president who couldn't tell who was in this study hall, why doors were wide open, why there were and they claimed there was 1,200 cameras and that there were cameras in the old building, so to speak, but they had no idea where this guy came in or got out, and it took a whole lot of outside resources to come to this. But even the response after this whole thing is, they've come to to find this dead body and everything, that the press specifically asked her what kind of, and I'll just paraphrase, what kind of revisions were going to be looked at Brown University, what Brown University was going to do to protect its students. And that's what it came down to. It's bad enough they're indoctrinating them, but now they don't even protect them. And I just thought it was really a sad story on the condition of one of our most prestigious and wealthiest universities in this country.
Yeah.
That this turned out that way. And if my afterthought on that was, if this was handled correctly, and if things were in place like they should have been, maybe this guy from MTI from MIT, maybe he wouldn't have gotten murdered. The second murder, I think you could place the part of the blame on Brown University. And I don't think it's going to be, they'll escape all this. To me, I thought politics was written all over the back wall with their mayor and the AG and the governor, and they all seem to be whispering over each other's shoulders. And I can understand, you gotta treat an investigation, like it's got to be investigated. But they sure left a really bad impression in my mind. And I don't know what you guys think, whether you even saw much of it, but I thought Brown University, really gave us a black eye on our education. And it's one of those things, again, going back to education, we need to clean up our education. Our kids are our future. And that's all I have to say, really.
That was a definite testimony of the sad state of higher education. Here this shooting happened. They would not tell us. He said something unique when he entered the classroom. They wouldn't tell us what it was. There might have been 20 kids in the room. There might have been 60. They don't know. They're not sure. The chief of police looks like a DEI hire. She looks even worse. The president of the university. I mean, when you say it was a disaster, that's a kind way of describing it, because it was incredible to think that this very, extreme crime in a well-known, Ivy League university, and they're like, we can't tell you anything because we don't know anything. And some people in the neighborhood had Ring doorbells, so we got a guy on there. We think he might be it, and that's what we get. That was crazy.
Well, and to just add to that, Gary, how do you have something like that happen, and then let everybody that was in the room go home, go on vacation, leave the place without interviewing every one of them? Because then we really would have known what that guy said. The AG at one point said, well, he just thinks they blurted out something that was unintelligible, like he screamed or something. That's what the AG said. I mean, there's that many people in the room. You mean they didn't interview any of them? They just let them go home on vacation?
Makes you wonder. And then the homeless graduate who's living in the basement of the building, if anything says, don't come to this university to get a degree, that says it all right there.
Well, is it true that the report that either they didn't have cameras in the old building or they had them turned off because the protesters didn't want to be seen on camera?
They said they had first they said there were no cameras because it was an old building. Then they said no, there are some, but they're mostly, they were in the hallway, and because it didn't show the perpetrator, they weren't going to release any of that video because all it showed was people running helter skelter.
All right.
But I mean, forget the cameras. There's no key to get in the door. There's any place that I know of in a university or what have you. You have to scan your ID, or you have to have some way to get into the building. The doors are wide open.
There's always shenanigans. Again, every time there's shenanigans, and this is why nobody trusts law enforcement, or especially at the federal level. Nobody trusts it, including, again, going back to the Charlie Kirk thing. Speaking of cameras, they would show angles of that square or whatever, that plaza, whatever it is, and where they would clearly have had an angle of the shooter when the shooting took place. So why haven't we seen that? Why do we never have the smoking gun, especially when you have cameras everywhere? And then, the joke at this point is that the only footage they ever release is it looks like, maybe like from a 90s camcorder, like why they have full HD cameras everywhere, including people in the crowd that were filming. And why is it that we only ever see, unless you're on Twitter, which the day, minutes after it happened, you had, it's awful, of course, but you had Charlie Kirk getting shot in 4K, with a camera and a gun at the same time. So it's, but yet they don't put that out. The law enforcement, they put out grainy footage, and where you just go, this is why nobody trusts you anymore. Why the shenanigans, Well,
it comes down to, and in this situation, if it wasn't for this homeless guy, he'd still be at large. They wouldn't have caught this guy. They wouldn't have caught this guy if it wasn't for the homeless guy who came forward after they begged for public assistance, and he gave them the tip, and they were able to figure out, that he rented a car and so on and so forth. That broke open the whole case. And if it wasn't for him, we'd still be looking for him.
Yeah. We inevitably live in this era of good people get punished for being good and bad people are rewarded for being bad. And then we're shocked that everything is slowly crumbling, but if you wanted to erode a great empire, that's exactly what you would promote. So that's circling back to the E word, circling back to the American empire. That's what we're facing. And then that plugs into what I was just saying about how when you don't have an enemy without, you turn inward. That's where the infighting starts. And we don't have a common enemy. We certainly do. We just don't talk about it. We don't talk about how, if you talk about China, for example, being a threat, you're going to be labeled a racist or whatever, So we're not allowed to talk about enemies without, and so we turn against each other. It reminds me of I can't remember who said this. It's probably like Gavin McInnes used to talk about this. How, because I know he's Scottish, how the Scots would talk about how for generations and generations they were killing each other, they were warring with each other. You had these Braveheart looking dudes fighting each other all the time, and then the moment that clears up, they all became drunks because they needed some battle. So they didn't have a battle out here. They couldn't swing their axe at some other dude's head. So they brought a war within themselves by consuming too much booze. We just always need something to fight against. It's just that right now we don't have that. We don't have a World War III yet. We don't have another Great Depression yet. So in the meantime, what do? We just point the finger at each other because we need conflict.
Well, all right, guys. We got to wrap this up here now. Very, very quickly. The only thing I've been thinking about is I think today they're supposed to release the Epstein files. And so we'll see how that's going to go over.
Several binders of just black lines. Can't wait.
Probably.
That would be amazing if it was just all black lines.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But I want to. Yesterday, I recorded an interview with KW on the Epstein files, and I thought his take on this was outstanding. He didn't talk. I don't want to give away the whole interview. That's going to be on our New Year's special, as a matter of fact, coming up on the 29th of December. But KW completely went around all the scandals and and all the stuff that makes the headlines, and addressed it as a constitutional issue. The double justice system in our country, tied that to the fall of the Roman Empire. So he got me to thinking about it, and I think I've talked him into coming on later, maybe in January, and doing a follow-up on that, but especially on the Roman Empire. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out today, and what the reactions are going to be by the public. So, okay. Very, very quickly, we really gone over time on this segment. That's okay. I'm going to tell you what a Christmas tradition that I have picked up on in the past few years. My mom and dad every Christmas used to make eggnog from scratch. Have y'all drank eggnog? Any of you? Do you like it?
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
Sure.
I hated it. I hated it as a kid. I hated it.
Need a new recipe.
I thought it was terrible. But they would make that every Christmas. They would make that from scratch. And it was something that their parents did. And so some years ago, I decided to, as a tribute to them, that I would buy some eggnog and drink it on Christmas Day. So I got some.
Well, you were drinking it as a kid, so I assume it was virgin eggnog?
Yeah, then.
Yeah.
That's
your problem right there. You got to put booze in it. You shouldn't be having that as a kid.
Yeah,
you got to spike it. You turn 21, you spike it, you love it.
They wouldn't have spiked it. My mom and dad didn't do that type of thing, but I don't think they did it.
Then don't drink eggnog. Are they crazy?
But I can
keep the tradition going. Just put the carton out, Dale. Just put the carton out.
Yeah, I remember them in the kitchen and putting all sorts of stuff in it, and I just anyway. But I never did like it, but it's not too bad now. Not too bad. So anyway, anybody got another got a Christmas thing they want to talk about?
I will follow up on your point there, Dale. My wife has begun a tradition, more of a Bailey's Irish Cream type of deal. Used to get it at Costco. It's different now. It's wine. It's not whiskey. It's really not the same. So she found a recipe to make her own. Wow. Irish whiskey, all the other heavy whipping cream, blah, blah, blah. I mean, delicious. Hard to keep it in the house at this point. So
Really?
that has become our new tradition. And yes, Charlie, it definitely has whiskey in it. It's like half whiskey. Makes it all good.
There you go.
A couple of sips, you're feeling it. Life is good.
'Tis the season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But the one thing that I could never do, much like you guys were feeling about eggnog or Dale was, is the fruit cakes. Remember the old fruit cakes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, of course.
Terrible. I mean, yeah, I could never do those. It's like one of my aunts, my mom's oldest sister, showed up every year with one of those things. And I just found a way to not be around when they got out the chisel and cut that, because I hated it. Yes, absolutely not my thing. So we got eggnog.
Our high school band used to use them, used to sell them to produce funding for our trips.
Yeah.
We couldn't give them away.
If you remember the old Johnny Carson joke, there was really only one. It just got passed around from one person to another.
Yeah.
Year after year, because nobody would actually eat the thing.
I can remember eating fruitcake, but you ate the fruitcake once everything else had been eaten, and that was the last thing to eat as a treat. And I can remember eating that, but I strongly remember fruitcake. Yes, very much.
And it could very well be the quality of the recipes and the amount of fruit. There's a lot of variables there, just like with eggnog. Right. But yeah, apparently my aunt, well, in my mind anyway, my aunt did not make a good fruitcake. Nobody else made it. It would sit there till the last thing, and then, I'm full. Can't have any of that.
On its face, fruitcake sounds like it should be amazing just based on the name, but I wasn't there back in the day when Johnny Carson was, because I mean, even in cartoons and stuff, they'd always make jokes about fruitcakes, and you're like, how is a cake made out of fruit bad? Anyway, okay, so I'm next in line, I guess. I'll just follow based on the screen. For me, Christmas means A Christmas Carol, whether it's being read or watched. And so nieces and nephews know when Uncle Charlie walks in, especially if they're not watching something, that is of the season. If they're watching just some cartoon that has nothing to do with Christmas, I'm like, oh, you caught you. They're like, no, because they know what I'm going to do is I'm putting on A Christmas Carol, because you could watch a new Christmas Carol every year and never run out of them. Right. So I pulled up an AI overview. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of Christmas Carol movies, with over 100 listed on IMDb, ranging from early silent films to modern retellings like Spirited, the Apple movie, and countless animated, musical, and dramatic versions, making it one of the most filmed stories ever. And this year, my oldest nephew, who's 12, he said, Uncle Charlie, why do you watch this so much? And I said, well, Shai, I guess I just doxed him. Because I am Ebenezer Scrooge, because the whole year I just spend my time mostly just being, some would say pessimistic, I say realistic about humanity just being a bunch of animalistic scumbags. And if I was in Scrooge's position, I would also be saying things like, good riddance and decrease the surplus population and all that. And that's why it's important to watch. I mean, every given Christmas, I'll probably watch 12 different versions of the same story, whether it's in black and white or if it's got Muppets or whatever. And it's that reminder that, and it is distinctly a Christian idea that even though, Jesus has nothing to do with A Christmas Carol. I don't even know if in the book, other than like people singing Christmas carols and Jesus being, they're singing songs like Silent Night and in the book and in some of the movies. But what I'm getting at is that even though it has to do with Scrooge and not Jesus Christ, the idea that that Jesus commands us, challenges us to still love all these obnoxious, awful, creaturely humans that we are forced to live amongst. So even as Jesus is being paraded through the streets, carrying his cross, getting, hit and spit on, and then eventually horrifically, crucified, you still, which is representative of just how awful humanity can be to you. It all year, it feels like we're carrying our crosses through the streets while everybody is crapping on us. You still have to love them. You still have to make an effort to overcome that and still love and appreciate humanity. And that's what Ebenezer Scrooge goes through, over the course of an hour and a half. And so it's that reminder that Uncle Charlie need not be such a pessimistic, PRICK all the time. And that's, so I'll have a glass of eggnog or Bailey's Irish cream, and I'll put that on for the kids, every time I head over.
All right.
Well said.
I guess that makes me next if I'm next to Charlie on the screen here, I guess. I carried over, I basically tried to carry over a tradition that my parents always had, and that was at least and this happened usually on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning. We would actually read the chapter of Luke about the birth of Christ before getting into the actual activities, because I think it was one of the things we wanted to put first as the reason for the season, as that saying came along. But as they pass away, and as you move forward with kids, and then for some of us grandkids, and some of us not even yet at that point. Thank you, Charlie. We had to kind of expand a little bit on traditions, and one of the things that my wife and I have ended up doing is we have the family over on Christmas Eve to carry on that first tradition, which is carried over from my parents. But then that's when we open presents with the kids and the grandkids. And then the following day, my wife makes a breakfast casserole, and we trudge up to my son's house to watch the grandkids again open up more gifts. So that becomes that has become the tradition, I guess. And I guess it will only get carried on when my grandkids have kids, and so on and so forth. But that's kind of the tradition there. And then I'll open up. I know Gary's got to get in here too, but I'm also going to open up the movie segment, mainly because it's hard for me to choose my favorite movie. It probably would come down to It's a Wonderful Life and The Christmas Story, and A Wonderful Life would have to be in black and white. Can't watch the color version. But
I didn't even know there was a color version.
Oh,
yeah, you got to watch black and white.
Charlie, the movie guy, doesn't know there's a color version.
There's a color version of almost everything, and does it really all come down to Ted Turner? I don't know. Yeah. Did he color absolutely everything? But I don't want to watch it in color.
No, it's got to be in black and white. But
I don't.
I end up gravitating towards A Christmas Story, mainly because as old as that movie is, I tend to watch it every year because I know what's coming. But the funny thing about that movie that keeps coming back, when I pull into my neighborhood, there's a house on the corner of my street that puts up that leg lamp in his corner of his house.
Is that right?
And I have a nephew who owns one. So to me, that is something that is being passed on. And when you drive down your neighborhood and you see the leg lamp, you kind of know what movies they're favorite. So I'll leave it.
Did you see the sequel?
It was the what?
Did you see the sequel? There was a recently made sequel to
I have not seen it.
Christmas Story.
Really?
And it's the same actors. I think they brought everybody back.
Oh,
including the boy.
He's
an adult now.
Dead, isn't he?
Well, maybe I did see that. Yeah.
I thought the father was dead.
What's it called?
Could be, but I think it's just called A Christmas Story 2.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. So I'd be interested to see what you think, considering that's a fave. Yeah, just A Christmas Story 2. And they brought everybody back. But you didn't put Die Hard on your list. Is that a number 3?
It was further down the list.
Yeah, I got to object here. I brought that up the other day, and I get soundly put down as not being a Christmas Carol. I'm just saying.
It's just if you can't figure out how that's a very Christian Christmas movie, you're dumb. Eventually, I'm just going to come around to the thinking that you're just dumb. If you don't think Die Hard's a Christmas movie, what are you watching that in the summer? No, you're watching that December 24th.
And I'll add one more thing. The other way that it gets ranked is by the things that come back that you get repeated over and over again. And for me, "You'll shoot your eye out" is something I hear more often than I need to. So.
Yeah.
All right, Gary, wrap us up here.
Okay, so I'm going to throw back to a Christmas tradition that only 4 of you are probably familiar with. But, years and years ago, every year, Sears and Roebuck sent out a special Christmas catalog. Yeah. And the guys went through and, circled what they wanted. And so mom and dad could find that. And today, kids, they don't have that. In fact, one of the gals the other night said that they used to cut out just pictures of the Barbie dolls from the Christmas catalog and play with the pictures for months. Wow. So anyway, those catalogs are a thing of the past.
Yeah. But they do. I will say, I don't know where they get them, but when I'm over at my sister's house, the kids have. I don't know if they're from specific stores. It's not that huge. It wasn't the Sears catalog like a book, right? It was huge. It was thick. These are smaller, but they still have that. They have some kind of actual physical book that they're going through with pictures of toys, and they're circling it, and they circle everything. I want this and this and this and this. So they still get a little bit of that, but not the not the massive catalog that he. So you're
saying tradition lives on.
You're saying that, Charlie. You're saying they don't screenshot Amazon.
That would just make me puke, again, like that's the thing. Uncle Charlie walks in and immediately makes them do things they don't want to do. They're always watching some brain rot cartoon where every other character has 2 dads, and I got to walk in and be like, guys, and so I immediately turn on something old. And at first they always fight. 5 minutes later, they're asking questions like, oh, what's Dorothy going to do when Toto runs off? They get into it. They get into everything that I put on. So somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to stand up for, the old school.
Good for you, Charlie. Good for you.
You take the lead, Charlie.
That's right.
Anyway, that'll be a wrap on the In Focus segment for this Christmas special. So, KW, Gary, Charlie, Merry Christmas to you guys. And thanks for participating. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas,
guys.
In addition to the In Focus, we're going to be bringing to you the part 6 of Meet the Founders on Ben Franklin. And that'll be the final part on Ben Franklin with Larry Hudson. I recorded this with Larry some days ago. And so that will wrap up Ben Franklin. And Ken, he's mentioning maybe John Adams next on the list as a founder. So
be an interesting take. Yeah,
should be an interesting one. Yeah.
Learning lots.
Of course, they're all interesting in their own. So should be very, very good. So Ken, this will be broadcast number 327, and you've been along for 185 of them. So we're moving right along, aren't we?
Chugging along, as they say.
For those of you that are looking for us, you can. The easiest way would be to go to our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention. Whoop! Did I drop that? American Patriots for Convention of States. And if you search on that and find our YouTube channel, there you can find not only the current broadcast, but any previous ones, as well as the shorts and a lot of information. Well, let's let Maringo Mike give us one last reminder here. And Ken, I thought maybe after Maringo Mike reminds us of this, I thought maybe you could talk a bit about the QR code up there.
We could give a quick assessment of that.
All right. So let's listen to Maringo Mike here.
Maringo Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell, so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
There you go. Well, that QR code right there happens to be our support code. So get your smartphone out, take a snapshot of that, and put your name and email address in, and you'll have access to our platform. And we look forward to you joining that, because we look forward to your suggestions, comments, and criticisms if you have any.
All right. I'm going to do a little teaser here, folks. Maringo Mike is going to undergo some changes for 2026. So
he's got a new healthcare policy, Dale. That's it's helping out.
Is that it? Is that he got a new healthcare policy?
Yeah, he got off of that Obamacare stuff.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So I think you're going to see some changes come 2026 with Maringo Mike. So
yeah,
be exciting. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, once again, host COS Today. We're here again with Larry Hudson to do the final segment, or the final part on Ben Franklin, one of the Meet the Founders, part of his series. So we're going to try and wrap it all up on this final part here. So without further ado, let me bring Larry on and let's get started here. And here comes Larry.
Hello, Dale.
Good, Larry. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for doing this. You've done a fantastic job on this series, and we've been working on Ben Franklin here, and we're going to try and wrap him up here this evening. So let's go ahead and get started, okay?
You bet. I appreciate your words, and we'll try our best.
Okay. We kind of came up short last time. I think we stopped right after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, right? So now the colonies have officially declared their independence, and basically the war has begun in earnest here now. So, what's next for Ben Franklin?
Well, the newly announced nation, the United States, has decided that it needs a new system of government, and it began work on what we come to know as the Articles of Confederation.
Right.
And Franklin, he served on a variety of congressional committees, one of which we discussed in the Thomas Jefferson series back a number of weeks or months ago, actually, that of designing the Great Seal for the new nation. And you might remember that in working with Jefferson and John Adams, for that matter, Franklin's proposal was to place the phrase "e pluribus unum" out of one many on the front of the seal, and a scene on the reverse that depicted Pharaoh, the Egyptian Pharaoh, being swallowed up by the Red Sea, with the phrase "rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." And that scene, of course, didn't survive, but the phrase did. And you might also remember that in that episode, I need to correct something that I said then. I think I mentioned that Franklin wanted the turkey. If you recall, he wanted the turkey to be our national bird.
Yeah.
Instead of the American eagle. Well, I've since read on two different occasions that that's not exactly true. He apparently did criticize the design for the Great Seal, saying it looked more like a turkey, and that the turkey was much more respectable of a bird and of better moral character than the eagle. So he might have defended the turkey against the bald eagle, but I'm told that that's a myth, and he didn't actually, or I've read, I should say, he didn't really propose it to become one of America's most important symbols.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you have in your outline here, it says meeting Lord Howe again. So what was that all about?
Well, there were two Howes, if you remember. Admiral Lord Richard Howe was the commander of the Royal Navy in the North American campaign, and his younger brother by a couple of years, General William Howe, was the commander-in-chief of all British military forces in the war. And they were at times openly sympathetic, really, to the American cause. And to this point, of course, they haven't been able to end the war either on the battlefield or at sea. And so they were hopeful that they might bring peace through words and not bloodshed. So there were earlier peace overtures, one to Washington back in July of 76, right after the Declaration of Independence and it failed. And this final peace effort came, I think, in September on Staten Island, when Washington was getting chased all around that particular island. And this time it was Admiral Howe who initiated the overture through a letter, and he sent it to Franklin this time, and not Washington. The two had met earlier in England, and he knew of Franklin's reputation, and he knew too that he was sympathetic at that point in time to the crown. So he personally met with Franklin along with John Adams and a gent named Edward Rutledge. And this meeting was a long one for the most part, but both sides were cordial. But unfortunately, he is said to have stated unhappily that he couldn't view the American delegates as anything but British subjects, and that he would feel America's loss like that loss of a brother, whereupon Franklin is reported to have happily informed him that we will do our utmost endeavors to save your lordship that mortification. So things went rapidly downhill. Howe then demanded that the Declaration of Independence be rescinded, which is obviously something Franklin couldn't do even if he wanted to. And his party, of course, refused. And so the meeting quickly adjourned, and there was no peace in sight, no turning back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the war has begun. I know Franklin's too old. I remember you said, I think he's over 70 years old now, right?
Yeah. He's right at 70. 70.
So what does he do during the conduct of this very long war between the Patriots and Great Britain? What does he do?
Well, shortly after he met with Howe, he is appointed by a congressional committee to embark on what one writer called the most dangerous and complex of all of his public missions. He was actually going to go to France yet again, this time to become an envoy in Paris. And his goal was to really cajole France, who is now at peace with Britain. And he's trying to get them to come to the aid of America with both money as well as military force. And he would be, I think, joined in this effort by Thomas Jefferson and a gent named Silas Deane. And before departing, he once again loaned all the money he could raise, a little more than 3,000 pounds, to the Congress to aid in the conflict. So he's off to France.
So off to France to get their aid and both money and men. So was he successful?
Well, not at first. The French government wasn't eager to get into another conflict with the Brits. War in America was certainly uncertain at this point. So after Howe took Philadelphia, that's General Howe now, and Burgoyne invaded Canada with the aim of coming south to reinforce Howe, things look pretty bleak for the Americans. And Franklin, along with his party of two, Jefferson and Deane, proposed what was called a triple alliance at that point in time between France, Spain, and the United States. Didn't come to pass, and as luck would have it, perhaps Burgoyne's army, as you recall, surrenders at Saratoga. And very soon after, Franklin is engaged in secret negotiations that ultimately bring France into the war onto the side of the colonies, or what are about to become states, have declared themselves states, United States now. And not only did France provide money to the tune of about $40 million in today's conversion,
wow.
But by the time the war finally ended, they had sent a bit over 44,000 troops to join the fight.
My goodness, my goodness.
And Franklin, whose health is now failing, he, as we said earlier, he's over 70 years old. He was asked to stay on as I like this one, a minister, if I can pronounce it properly, plenipotentiary. That's a diplomat who's been granted full powers to sign treaties, conventions, etc., on behalf of the sovereign that he works for, in this case, the United States. And so after Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, I think that would be in 1781, he finds himself in the catbird seat in this role. It wasn't but a year later that peace negotiations actually began in France, and it was Franklin alone who represented American interest during the first stages of those negotiations.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, I see in your outline something Franklin had included this cession of Canada into the U.S. Is this where Trump wants to decided to call it the 51st state, or is that have anything to do with it? Not, maybe not, huh? But what happened there with Canada?
I'm not sure if Trump is up on this part of it or not. I don't know. But it is true. He did want to include Canada, even though he had failed, in that earlier attempt that we talked about, almost cost him his life. On the way home, he got iced in there in Saratoga.
Yeah.
But he continued to push for a secession of Canada as part of the deal. But obviously that does fall through. The peace document that was developed, however, generally followed the terms that he alone, as this plenipotentiary, had proposed at the outset of the negotiations. And again, there are historians who consider the successful negotiation of this treaty with the British, as I'm quoting here, the greatest achievement in the history of American diplomacy. That's today.
Yeah.
So wow. I found that, I don't know. I don't think that can be said of very many people.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a diplomatic achievement, huh? So, what all did the treaty provide for?
Well, it was a provisional treaty to start with, and when the final treaty was signed in Paris in 1783, almost 8 years after the war had begun, on the Lexington Green there in Massachusetts, the treaty recognized the independence of the United States, of course, but it formally acknowledged it as a sovereign nation. It made it free from all British control, provided for the removal of all the British forces from American soil. It also granted significant territory west of those states to the Mississippi River, actually, along with navigation rights on that river. And then it even provided access all the way across the country and up the coast to the contested Atlantic fisheries off of Newfoundland, fishing rights.
Wow.
And then the northern boundary now becomes what Franklin would have liked Canada, but it stopped at the upper end of the Great Lakes, if you will. And then it's extended south to what is now the northern edge of or boundary of Florida. And it effectively doubled the size of the United States. It addressed issues regarding debts, allowing American creditors to collect debts that were owed to them by British subjects, and it even provided for provisions to protect loyalists Tories who'd remained loyal to the British Crown during the Revolution. And again, another quote here. One historian that I read summed up that treaty by saying the Treaty of Paris not only marked the official end of the Revolutionary War, but it also established a framework for the United States' future. It set the stage for territorial expansion westward and recognized the nation's sovereignty, and it opened the door for economic development.
Wow. So
Franklin, of course, was happy.
Yeah, I was going to say Franklin must be very happy with the results of this treaty. So now what does he do?
Well, his health, as we've already discussed, is slowly deteriorating, and he finally gets permission from Congress to leave his post in France. In fact, he's replaced by Thomas Jefferson, and he's going to come home to America. And when he does get here, he's not hardly home a week before he's nominated for election to the Pennsylvania, what they call the Supreme Executive Council. He won that election, and it was quickly chosen to be its president, which effectively made him the governor of the state. That's what the post was. It was a commonwealth, not a state at that point. He served in the capacity for a year, was reelected. No dissenting vote was taken, and he left office because he was the one that dissented. He had to quit. So he's almost 80 now. Looking forward to retirement. I think he wanted to pursue reading, scholarly interests, that sort of thing. But as you know, we're not done with him. That turns out to be somewhat short-lived.
Yeah, I think what you're leading up to is that he's his involvement in the Constitutional Convention, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he's got one more role, if you will, as a politician. And the Articles of Confederation, as you and I well know, with our Convention of States involvement, they've proven to be what's the term? Woefully inadequate,
right.
As a form of government. And several states call for a convention to consider changes to that document. And he's chosen to represent Pennsylvania in that convention as a delegate, which was slated to meet in Philadelphia in May of 1787. And once those sessions got underway, I got another quote here from Franklin. He got a look at the men who had been chosen by their respective states, and he is said to have remarked, so I can find it here, this is the most august and respectable assembly he was ever in his life. And now remember, he's 81, in failing health, plagued with gout and the pain that often accompanies it. On most days, he was, I read, carried to the sessions in a sedan chair by inmates from the local prison. And it appears that he said little during the first few days, but before it was over, he was not a good speaker. He was a tremendous writer, but not necessarily a good speaker.
Really?
The days rolled on. He became much more involved, and he really proposed several very interesting motions and engaged in some pretty vigorous debate during.
Well, what were some of his proposals?
Well, first off, he unsuccessfully, I guess, moved that the executive, the president, receive no salary, for fear that a post of honor would become a post of profit. And he also moved that the president be limited to a single term of 7 years in office, and that he could be removed by impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
And then of note was his opposition to limit suffrage, the right to vote, to freeholders, people who own land. And he didn't believe in that at all. He wanted everybody to have the right to vote, not necessarily the landowner.
Okay.
And he was also, this even comes forward in today's, this survived to today, the issue representation. he agreed to proportional representation in the House, and he proposed that each state get one representative per 40,000 in population. I think we're up to, I think I read where it's right around 750,000 per representative today.
Yeah, something like that
level. And he wanted each state to have an equal vote in the Senate. And interestingly, he also moved that the House have the sole power of the purse to raise revenue.
Okay. Well, here's an interesting point here. You mentioned in your outline that I guess one of his motions was to bring about daily prayer each morning prior to their work, and how did that happen?
Well, it's well known, I guess, but perhaps not well explained, or it's often incomplete when they
was that a prayer at the convention every day? Is that what he was promoting or proposing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He did provide a stirring motion that the convention be opened with prayer each day, just as Congress had been doing before.
Right.
But Hamilton and several others strongly opposed the idea. You don't often hear that part. And eventually, a minister from North Carolina, as I remember, anyway, he noted that there was no money available to hire a chaplain, even if they wanted one. And so the convention actually adjourned without even voting on the motion. And Madison's notes do cover Franklin's appeal. It said, I think a quote here, "We shall be divided by our little partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to future ages. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service." Now, his actual address is lengthy, quite long, very eloquent, and you can easily find it online if you're interested in reading it. When the convention did finally come to an end, in September, the delegates gathered to sign the document, and not all were convinced that it was the thing to do. And Franklin made one last attempt to convince those present to do so with another eloquent, somewhat lengthy appeal, and that can be found online as well. One historian that I read did write that when Franklin's turn came to, sign his name, he had to be helped forward to the desk, and that while signing his name, he actually wept. And of course, Dale, we're often reminded of his response to the woman. Remember the woman who stopped him as they came out of the Independence Hall.
Yeah.
She said, "Well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" And he replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it."
If you can keep it. Yeah, I remember that quote.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we always learn something in the process here of learning or talking about Ben Franklin. But and no doubt about it, he played a crucial role with regard to the nation's founding. So I see in your notes, however, that the issue of slavery, is there something we should know about Franklin pertaining to this subject?
Well, I think it's, I would be remiss if I didn't expound a little bit on it. At least it came to me not as a surprise, really. Maybe when you compare him as a founder to some other founders that, of course, had slaves. He had slaves as well. It's not mentioned in our Constitution. We all know that. And yet he and other founders had slaves, but not all were in favor of it. In fact, many that owned slaves were against it. And Franklin was one of those individuals. Now, early on, like a lot of citizens of that time, he owned slaves and he viewed them as inferior to white people. And he wrote that, and not publicly, but in letters, in correspondence. And like a lot of others, he believed that they couldn't be educated. Okay. His own newspaper, the Gazette, I think it was the Pennsylvania Gazette, it often even advertised the sale of slaves, and it frequently published notices of runaways and that sort of thing. But at some point later in life, he started changing his mind, much like I think Jefferson did. And he began anonymously, first of all, publishing anti-slavery ads, some of which I guess he had received from the Quaker population. And it wasn't long before he started donating money to the abolition effort. And he even co-founded, Dale, the Abolition Society of Philadelphia.
Yeah. Another thing that he created, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And he also started writing publicly about African shortcomings and the ignorance that he had talked about earlier was not, in fact, inherently natural, but actually came from a lack of education.
Yeah.
And the terrible conditions of slavery, the negative impact it had on those that were enslaved, and that sort of thing. And he eventually came to the conclusion that he saw no difference in learning capacity between the African and white children. And so just weeks before the start of the Constitutional Convention that we just discussed, he actually published an anti-slavery appeal wherein he stated that the creator of the world had made one flesh all the children of mankind.
Mm.
And he had come to the conclusion that, a nation built on the promise of human equality given by God at creation really couldn't continue if it didn't practice it.
Well, did he ever do anything in Congress to try to abolish slavery? Did he ever get anything done there?
Not that I could find, Dale.
Yeah.
Not that I could find in what I've read. I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm not finished reading, but I do know that I did read that I think it was just 2 or 3 months before he died, he petitioned Congress. He's no longer in it. He petitioned Congress to provide a means to bring slavery to an end. I don't know what that entailed. I think it was primarily developing money, providing money to bring slavery to an end. Unfortunately, the petition was rejected by both houses of Congress, by the pro-slavery congressmen from the southern states. So it didn't pass muster. They did form a committee to give it further deliberation, and this is ironic, it ultimately came to the conclusion that the Constitution itself restrained Congress from prohibiting both the emancipation of slaves as well as the trading of slaves, the buying and selling of slaves. So,
wow.
As I said, his health was failing, and in April he passed away. I think he was 84 years old. So he never saw slavery abolished.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, I see in your notes here that Lincoln did solve it 75 years later, huh?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, about 75 years later, of course, the Emancipation Proclamation that President Lincoln signed freed over 3 million slaves, I believe, at that point in time in the United States.
All right. Well, Larry, I think it's we're to the point of wrapping this up here. So what a life this guy led. I mean, you gotta be amazed, I think, and you've got to be impressed with the life that he led.
I was.
You've covered a lot of territory, and I can tell you you've I think you think very highly of him. I got that impression. So so you want to kind of wrap things up on us here with Ben Franklin then?
Yeah, I certainly will. I found him to be fascinating. So many talents. I mean, I thought Jefferson was hard to beat. Well,
yeah,
Franklin is right up there with Jefferson as far as accomplishments and intellect. And I mean, he had no education, as you know, unlike many of his contemporaries. Jefferson had an education. You could argue that Washington was a lot like Franklin in the sense of not quite as much education as others had, but he started as an artisan, 2 years of schooling, but through ingenuity and resourcefulness, he became really a self-made man early.
He was self-made. He was a self-made man.
Self-made man. Yeah. Public spirited. He was generous to a fault. He gave away money all during his adult life to different causes. He was a persistent loyalist for much of his life. But when he saw the efforts fail, heard the pleas of his countrymen, he became an ardent patriot. And his scientific achievements, made him a celebrity around the world. He has diplomatic skills. What I've learned and what historians feel today are still marveled at during the Revolutionary War, particularly his role in the Treaty of Paris and his role in the Constitutional Convention. It was pivotal and it helped shape our new country's Republican form of limited government.
Yeah.
And so, when he was still a young man, and I'll leave with this, he wrote down his own mocking epitaph. And it read, let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the covering of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost. It will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more beautiful edition, corrected and amended by the author.
Wow. That's good.
Now, that epitaph didn't get chiseled into his gravestone. I don't want people who hear this might think that actually survived. That's what he wrote when he was a young man. Instead, we just find if you visit his gravesite, you'll find it says Benjamin and Deborah Franklin, 1790.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay. Great job, Larry. Who's next on the list? Have you picked one out?
I have. I think. Well, I'm reading Chernov's book on John Adams, and I'm about half through, and then I've got another book on Adams from. I guess he just died last year. I can't think of the author's name right now, but I think it's going to be John Adams.
John Adams, you think?
And I don't think any of them are going to be as long as what we've had in these previous watches.
There's a lot on the people that you've covered so far. Yeah.
Adams, his distant cousin, I think it's a second cousin, is Samuel Adams.
Oh, okay.
And then Adams' son, John Quincy Adams. So, I mean, there's three Adams in there that were very instrumental. Well, certainly the first two, Samuel and John, were instrumental in the Revolutionary period. John Quincy came afterwards, but still was a president, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I might try to combine a little bit of that and cover both Sam and John. We'll see.
All right.
I've got the Christmas vacation to catch up on my reading.
All right. Larry, once again, thank you very much. This has been terrific.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you. Well, folks, that's it for Ben Franklin. And once again, I want to thank Larry for doing this. All of his series have been just really great. And we'll be doing more, as you can tell, in 2026. So with that, we'll say goodnight to everyone. And thank you very much. Good night. Very quickly, just want to say our next broadcast will be the December 29th New Year's special. And so we'll be recording that one very soon. Be another recorded, pre-recorded program, just as this one is. So we'll say good night. We'll let the pre-recorded program, we'll let Maringo Mike close us out. And that'll be it for our Christmas special. So, Ken, I think thank you for everything, and you have a very, very Merry Christmas, my man.
You as well, Dale. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and hopefully you won't even get your snow shovel out if it snows.
Yeah, apparently it's not going to. Apparently not.
I think we're going to hit some highs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we're going to hit some highs. Yeah. So with that said, good night, everyone. And I hope everyone has a very, very Merry Christmas. Good night.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder that our work to raise the bar on making our federal government accountable to the people is only halfway done. We need to grow our grassroots army of citizens every day to fulfill the vision of our forefathers and keep our land free and prosperous. So, if you have never signed the petition to show your support, use that QR code and do that now. While you're there, why not kick it up a notch and volunteer for many of the positions available where your talents can make a difference as we march into a new year. Thank you,